Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Tesla. It is time for another update, and today we will be discussing the interesting developments that occurred here in the small time frame over the last few weeks. But before we get there, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And here we are still tracking the same ideas. We are tracking two scenarios on the large time frame, both ultimately bullish, but in the orange interpretation we are tracking here an initial wave 1 up, a wave 2 down, and then another 1-2 setup here. And now we are looking to see if we develop another wave 1 up, or if we are to follow through still in the red interpretation back into the area of support and have an attempt of forming a wave 3 to the upside in a more direct fashion. Now I'm saying that because within this movement to the upside we are developing a diagonal pattern, meaning that this itself cannot be the third wave unfolding to the upside, and it can really only be either a wave 1, a wave 5, a wave A, or a wave C. Anything but a wave 3 basically, almost anything. Now, other than this interpretation in orange, we do also have this scenario in green where we may have here multiple 1-2 setups initially, but then this would be another 1-2 setup. This would be a third wave up, fourth wave down, and then a fifth wave that could be unfolding to the upside. And again, fifth wave or a fifth wave is one of the waves that can be unfolding as a diagonal pattern. And then completing this as a fifth wave to the upside would allow us to be tracking an overall larger 5-wave move to the upside that could be considered an overall wave 3. So we would end up tracking a 1, 2, 3, and we would be looking for a fourth and a fifth to be developing afterwards. Now, also within this green scenario, we can head back into the area of support and reset basically the wave 4 bottom. So this interpretation in red does apply for both scenarios. The same applies for the red scenario and the white scenario. Both of them can apply for the larger scenarios. These are on the smaller time frame. These are for this structure in this area, and they both can apply for both the orange interpretation and the green interpretation. But right now, we don't need to concern ourselves too much within or with the green scenario or the orange interpretation. I do want to keep these options up front to be clear about the expectations that I have in general on the long term for the chart. But internally, what we really need to focus on right now are these interpretations in white and red. Now, in the white scenario, we are tracking this diagonal structure to the upside, and we are looking to still push into a wave C within the larger wave 3. We are tracking here a 1-2 setup, then this would be an A, B, C within the third wave, and right now we would be unfolding the wave C, or unfolding in the wave C. And then in red, we would be looking here at a wave B top, and this remains a valid interpretation only as long as we don't form a new high in this area, and we would be looking for a C wave to be unfolding to the downside. Then this could end up being a wave Y in the end. Doesn't really matter too much, but the point is we could be looking still at further extensions lower. However, if we break this previous top, this wave B top, it would become increasingly unlikely that this structure in red will still end up working out. Now, technically it is possible to get double overshoots, because this is already an overshoot in the red interpretation, but they are quite uncommon, and those structures generally work better within other interpretations. So if I actually see here a break above the current wave B top, I would heavily prefer that we are in the white interpretation, and it would be much more likely that it will end up working out in the white scenario. Then we shouldn't even really be tracking too actively the red interpretation. We might not even keep it on the chart at that point, because it will be a very unlikely scenario for me at least until we get further evidence. Right now, we still haven't managed to form a new top, and we are still watching out for it. But remember, we have broken here the relevant area of resistance, so we are already heavily leaning towards the white interpretation working out, that being the preferred scenario right now. Now, in the short time frame in this area, we are tracking a couple of ideas. So right now we are still looking for a third wave to be unfolding in this area, and remember, we are looking to develop a wave C. Within the wave C, we need to see a 5-wave structure. So far within these waves, we are looking at a wave 1 up, a wave 2 down, and then we are looking for the third wave to the upside to be unfolding. Now keep in mind, we are tracking a diagonal pattern most likely in this area. It might actually be able to work out as an impulse as well, but I don't necessarily have too high hopes for that. I will be tracking that idea. This is what we are basically tracking in the white interpretation right now, because for the impulse we must hold here this area of support and extend directly into this follow-up wave 5 to the upside. And right now we are doing this brilliantly, because we have only managed to get a wick below the area of support a couple of times. Now the thing is, depending on how strong this wave 5 or this movement to the upside ends up being, we might need to reconsider that this is indeed a fifth wave, because from another perspective, here we have also been tracking this idea in blue, and we have also gotten to this area of support, which allows me to be looking also for the wave C to the upside. Now within this wave C, I would have certain expectations, and I would like to see a stronger movement than I would expect within this internal fifth wave in white. But in the end, it might end up being a lot more difficult to tell than necessarily expected, and we will need to be a little bit more patient to get some more evidence depending on which structure is unfolding. But right now, honestly, we haven't even formed a new top beyond this current wave 3 top, so there isn't necessarily even a clear evidence that this structure to the downside has completed. There is no evidence that this wave B would have already bottomed. But if we actually end up going back into the area of support, well, it is rather likely than not that we will end up breaking the white interpretation. But currently this isn't the case, and clearly we are looking good, because from the current bottom, that I can actually even consider this additional movement lower, the current bottom in the wave 4, we have started quite a decent movement to the upside. Now we can actually even go here into the smaller time frame, and in the previous video we were looking here at a resistance up to the $412 level for direct extensions lower within this area. Clearly we didn't get it, and that is perfectly fine. Yeah, we can track this larger structure as an overall ABC movement, and we can consider it complete at this point, but I would actually probably still prefer to consider this an ABC pattern, and I would still be considering this low the actual wave 4 bottom, or in this case, in the blue scenario, even the wave B bottom. Yeah, because even though we didn't necessarily form a new low within this structure to the upside, I cannot really be looking at this with too much confidence as an ABC structure. Yeah, not really, even if I consider this an ABCDE. Yeah, maybe it could work out, but then I would need to be tracking a diagonal structure to the upside. Now in the end, I don't necessarily have authority over which structure will end up playing out, but right now I heavily prefer to be tracking the bottom from this point and be looking even for a potential impulse forming within this area. Now, the way I interpret this structure that is developing internally is actually a more impulsive and bullish interpretation. This is currently my preferred scenario, where I wouldn't necessarily be looking at this as a 5-wave move that has unfolded to the upside, but rather I might prefer to consider that this is a series of 1-2 setups that have formed in this area, and even here a series of 1-2 setups, and that I would like to see a very strong movement here in the third wave. The reason why I am tracking this is the momentum that seems to still be increasing, so there isn't too much weakness going on. We are getting quite shallow retracements, and I am open to the idea of an even stronger movement unfolding. However, if we are to break here very small time frame support levels, we will need to be prepared for an even more significant correction. Yeah, I won't be looking here for a larger 1-2 setup. I will be looking here for a very small internal 1-2 setup in which I wouldn't even expect a deep retracement. If I see such a pattern, I would probably be more open to the idea of tracking a larger 5-wave move, yeah, in a 1-2, then a third wave up, fourth wave down, and then a fifth wave to the upside. Then I could consider this a leading diagonal, and I would still be open to tracking a 1-2 setup, and I would still be open to looking for continuation to new highs, but it wouldn't be necessarily within the explosive pattern that I will be currently tracking as the main scenario. And for that, I will be putting out here a backup interpretation, basically, which we can actually go ahead and track in yellow, where we can track a larger area of support at the levels between the $420 all the way down to the $396 level at the 78.6% retracement. As long as we hold here these levels, we can still look for continuation to new highs. If we break, however, below the 78.6% retracement, well, it would be a quite great warning sign that this structure might end up going, it would likely end up going within a reset here of the wave B in the blue interpretation, and that we should be a little bit more patient until we continue our uptrend. Now again, from a large time frame perspective, we would still need to hold here the levels of support for the blue scenario for any high probability ideas of tracking continuation to the upside. Otherwise, I will have to say I am prepared for extensions into the red interpretation. And then here internally, as I was saying, the main scenario that I want to be tracking at the moment is a very impulsive structure in this area, for which I need to hold here a 1-2 setup. However, again, remember, we are expecting very shallow retracements within such a pattern that would be unfolding in this area. And if I were to actually see a break even below the 50% retracement, which is normally the limit for a wave 4, I would rather be prepared for a more complete breakdown. I wouldn't necessarily be looking for a deep retracement in this area. It would suggest to me that this structure is more likely not going to play out in this hyper bullish scenario. But here, as long as we hold the $436.6 level, I could still be looking here for an internal 1, 2, 3 to be unfolding, and who knows, this could prove quite lucrative, but again, it has a very small time frame support, and it is extremely fragile, also being on the very small time frame. I have tracked a similar area of support on the Bitcoin chart, and it would have provided, or it did prove a lot more useful, as after we have broken the relevant level of support at the 50% retracement, even for a 1-2 setup, we had quite a significant correction to follow still. And for now, there really isn't much else to add. I won't be going into the internals of this structure. These are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.